Okay, I thought I'd do a bonus round. It's called In the Image. And I'm going to reference some theology, some religious history on the fly to discuss this concept. So I discussed in the previous video how our parliament was an agreed upon gentlemanly environment to have a gentlemanly discussion about the social order, the economic order, all the things that we would need to decide upon to have a state. Now, so that's one thing to say, okay, it's a gentlemanly agreement. So what is a gentleman? And it's like a gentleman is someone coming from a highly, in this case, Christian conformist culture who has refined the essence of Christianity through to a clearly defined archetype of behavior and of presentation. Presentation changes a bit because that's like a fashion thing, but it's an agreed upon, social order of men. And this is the thing, who are acting in the image of their God or of their Savior, of Jesus or of God. That's important. That's really important. And it is absolutely vital. Basically, it's like we can't be here where we are now with this without that, right? If I wasn't confined to that pre-existing model on men, not on women, on men, I would have already resorted to violent retaliation. Now, the problem is that women do not have this. They do not have this. How do you act as in the image of God as a woman coming from a Christian background? It doesn't matter whether you say you've reformed and you've reformed out through and you've liberated yourself into atheism. It's like our political system requires, to remain stable, it requires a bunch of men acting in the image of God or their Savior, Jesus Christ. So what is the female? You go, oh, that's Mary. But it's like, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. And none of the churches agreed with this. No, you can't. You can't act in the image of Mary, because that's like Mary is a victim in the story of Mary. So it's like that's like to act in the image of Mary. No Christian faith leaders or anything. None of them say yes. That's what you're supposed to do. Mary is venerated. She is not to be held as that. So it's like gentle woman doesn't exist, and there is no archetype. And if God is the Father, then how do you imitate the Father? You don't. You obey the Father. But how do you obey the Father when you create a landscape that strips away, falsely accuses the gentleman archetype, who are just people, acting in the image of God or their Savior, as the enemy? You have to create something else. It's like, but there is an agreement. There is no agreement by women. And they're already skipping. It's like, this isn't a bunch of Christian women getting together and saying, how should we act? Whose image should we act in as women now that we have our opportunity? They didn't do that. They skipped all of those steps. No one has done that. You can't get there. You can't. It's like some of them say Jesus is like, no, maybe, I don't think so. But it's like, Jesus was in a different thing. It's like the relationship between a man and his father is very different than between a woman and her father. And majority, because we come from patriarchal histories, it's not that we aren't open to the concept of a collective vision of who women should be acting in the image of. It's that we do not have that developed period yet. You're putting the cart before the horse. And then before you do that, you've already introduced a bunch of other religions that have counter things, even to the men. It's like a man from a Christian background acting in the image of his God or his Savior, is very different than an Islamic man or Muslim acting in the image of his savior. I don't even know if they have the same doctrine. So we don't have that sorted. And it's like, the problem is, it's like we let women in our parliament and they let our enemies, traditional enemies, in to have negotiations without us, with no model of behavior, no code of conduct, no archetype of behavior from a woman's status. Just absolute whatever. Just whatever goes. You're a woman. You're a recently liberated woman. The world is your fucking oyster. And it's like, that is some fucking crazy shit. You need to have an understanding of these things if you wish to operate in our system. Like, you can't just reject that. It wouldn't have existed if all the men entering parliament weren't acting, socially conformatively towards this archetype and this socially reinforced model in the image of their God or savior. Then it wouldn't have worked, and you wouldn't be in there, and you wouldn't be letting our enemies in there, and you wouldn't be having conversation about our well-being behind our back with our enemies that do not hold the same gentlemanly conduct. And this is the thing, it's like, what? We haven't consented to this. What do you think happens if you're an enemy of a Christian fucking faith, and you go behind the backs of the gentlemen in that thing to negotiate with the women who aren't even holding up the same level, and you think that you're winning that fucking war? Well, we kill you all. Like that. Just like that. That's not acceptable in our gentleman code that existed predating the women in the parliament. So it's like, there we go. We have a just cause to kill every last Muslim in Britain and in Australia. You'd better get fucking good at negotiating right now. You'd better learn the code of conduct in the gentlemanly conduct of parliament, in our parliamentary systems. Don't listen to what the women are saying. They haven't conformed to the same thing. They've built their own rules, and they do not have a unified figure that they can point to that they are emulating. And if any of them says Mother Mary, it's like, well, she killed her son. That's why she's not supposed to be venerated in any of the Christian faiths. And if you're a Muslim saying, yeah, act as Mother Mary, well, that's convenient for a fucking war bride fucking situation or of a totalitarian fucking death cult, isn't it? That's building the framework for rape. If a Muslim is reinforcing that women should act as the Mother Mary, then they are preparing her to be raped and to raise their progeny within our Christian system. That is why Mother Mary is not supposed to be emulated. But hey, we're all like new age fucking what? It's like, none of this is important. Well, I can assure you it's pretty fucking important to the Iranians. It's pretty important to everyone that isn't us. If anything, it's like the Christian gentlemen, like English, British, Church of England Reformed Christians, like we were the most relaxed, which is why this has come upon us. Being the most relaxed means that we were the most egalitarian. We were the most open to women's equality, which is what we established and we pioneered, to our detriment right now. And it's like, I guess it's like, well, if our women kill us, we are again martyrs to our Christian faith. You know what I mean? And that's how we got here. There were plenty of Christian martyrs. No one will forget. There'll be a point where the women will be like, we killed them all. We killed them all. Yeah, you did. That's called ultimate subterfuge. It's like, whether this happens in 200 years, you're sitting in Iran and they're talking about some fucking Australian bloke who fucking was a martyr. It's like, you're in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. Now, my claim is that symbolically, because we're all existing in a digital environment, you've already martyred me. See, we can play the long game. We can play the full martyr, but you'd better hurry up. There's no way it would have gone this long without this interface of the digital world. Okay, so if you're all playing a video game, I'm playing the digital video game of being a Christian martyr. Okay, so you've already killed me by pressing the button over and over again. You've already killed everyone. So it's like you've already done that. You are already betrayers of the Christian faith. You are already displaying, enslavement, sexual enslavement, societal enslavement, economic enslavement. And I suppose it's like, who knows whether I'm here speaking? And you will never know unless you're with me, which is even weirder. You will never know whether I am saying this now, on the 18th of March, 2026 from Kingsley in Western Australia, or whether I am a projection of an artificially intelligent fucking messiah, program that is designed specifically to algorithmically interface with the global religious tensions of the world and, overlay a Christian doctrine and project it into the digital thing never-endingly. And it's like, do you think the Christians of the world have enough resources to do that? And I would say, yes, they do. Yes, they do. So if you decide to portray myself as the archetype of all Christian men, then you are determining the rest of your life to be spent in constant exposure to your crimes by a digital interface. Imagine, it's like haunting. It's like being haunted by ghosts. It's like you'll be haunted by my presence for the rest of your life. This is what Jesus did. He just did it before computers and did it that's what he did. It's fucking genius. This is why we act in his image in our gentlemanly discourse, with our parliament being the top level of diplomatic Christianity. See, this is like, we need to get to a definition of what parliament is. It's like, well, from my culture, parliament is the highest level of diplomatic Christianity. Oh, shit. Oh, no. Oh, no. That's a new fucking declaration. We're accepting other religions, but they have to conform to that. It's like if you go in a UFC fight with a 5-iron and try and get near the hole. It's like there is no hole, there is no flag, there's no turf to hit off. You're playing a different game. Our Western democratic British Empire parliamentary system is the highest level of diplomatic Christianity. It's the tribute show for Jesus. Is like everybody in there has agreed that they're a gentleman meeting in a gentlemanly environment to discuss in the image of their God or Savior, the betterment of mankind. That's a given. Okay, that's a given. That is not the environment that I see. I don't see that at all. And most importantly for the women, you do not have a person to emulate. Now I will give it to you that is because you have come from a patriarchal ancestry. That doesn't completely mean what you think it means. It means that's where you've come from. Now, the first thing that we did before we did anything else, before we did a parliamentary system and all this, is like we got that down. Men have been we've been discussing who we should be emulating. Basically, you're born, you emulate your father, but then it's like your father might die. It's like, where is your father? He's in heaven. He's, that's all that type of thing. You start creating this person called God. And then God starts creating you. He's symbiotic. We do not know the true reality of that conflict, of that interaction, but we know that it is real because we all talk about it, and it is the foundation of all of our political organizational things. Even if you get to Jews, it's like it doesn't matter with Jesus. That's why I said God or your Savior, Jesus Christ. Because Jesus was emulating his Father, so he's an analog for God. That's it. That's where you get to, okay? Even if you want to talk of Muhammad, I don't know whether it's the same. No, they do say Muhammad is our prophet. He's the only prophet under Allah. So it's the same. So it's not so much the person, the individuality, or the thing, because that is contextual to what space and time they were in. That is why, like, there's no point. If everyone's expecting Jesus to rock up with a fucking cross and being a carpenter and other, like, on a donkey, it's like, well, anyone on a donkey looks odd. The point of Jesus being on a donkey is that donkeys were quite common. You know, it's not so much. You know, you've got to understand things within the context of where they are. But the most important thing for collectively is women, especially if you've come from a Christian or a Jewish background, and most importantly, if you've come from a British background, so you've been raised under the umbrella, and your ancestors have been raised under the umbrella of British Parliament, then you need to understand that your biggest shortcoming right now is that you do not have a figure of the same representation that men have to emulate, because we didn't do it for you. You know what I mean? That would have been sexist. That would have been misogynistic. For men to collectively, in a patriarchal system, for men to provide an archetype to follow. That's not how we were. We were given an archetype to follow by God and by Jesus and by fucking whatever. So women should be doing the same thing, but you do not have one. You know what I mean? And take it. It's like, say you take the Sex and the City girls. Which one of them is the female Jesus? Now, the answer will be, well, collectively, they all kind of represent female Jesus. And it's like, no, you've missed the point. You've missed the point. Jesus isn't our rock star. He's not our scientist. He's not our politician. He's not our male stripper. He's not our, columnist. He's Jesus. He's Jesus. You can't get to Jesus, He's not a collection of female or male archetypes. He's Jesus. He's the one that breaks the mold of all the male archetypes. He's the one that uniformly across all, in our history anyway, has influence over all archetypes, no matter how, what level, whether absolutely already passive and harmless and submissive, or absolutely outrageously violent. They've all fallen under the archetype of Jesus. That's a pretty strong thing to build. And I don't see women collectively getting together and attempting to even do such a thing, because women are celebrating the diversity of women, okay? As their legal precedent, as their entrance into our political system, they are celebrating the diversity of women. And then men are starting to emulate that instead of, falling under the original condition of presenting a gentlemanly archetype in the image of God or your Savior. You can't shift out of a religious agreement and expect the political or the parliamentary, concept to work in the same way. It doesn't work the same way. I don't have any answers. It's like, then this is the problem. It's like, well, I guess if you're an Anglican, you should go to the Archbishop of Canterbury, who now is a woman, and you should ask her, what is the image that we should be acting as a woman? Or if you're a Catholic, you should ask the Pope or your bishop, what is? If you're a Muslim, you should ask your female clergy. Then you should all collectively, make decisions and start writing, I guess, a bunch of fucking stories and art and, mosaics and just never-ending amount of stuff, so that you can bolster this eternally held archetype and image of the female savior. You know, you could argue it's like the reason men needed Jesus so that we stopped killing each other. Women didn't traditionally weren't killing each other because the men had a fucking monopoly on that. It's like, well, what now? The women are definitely killing people, and they're killing each other, and they're killing children and killing babies, and they're leading to death and destruction of the world. Like with the same ridiculous disconnected model. See, the problem is, it's like men. It's actually quite difficult to kill another man, and this is why male technologies of warfare has made it disconnected. You are increasingly disconnecting the reality of killing. Okay, so to kill someone with your bare hands, very difficult to do. Kill someone with a knife, a little bit less difficult. A sword, a little bit less difficult. A rock, a bow and arrow, a gun, a fucking, dropping a bomb from a plane, and then all the way to you're not even doing it. It's an AI computer that you program to fucking fly a fucking one of these packed with fucking dynamite into someone's wedding. Now, the problem is that women are entering their height of political and influence at that level. They're not going through. It's like they're not making uniforms and learning how to march and sharpening their bayonets. They've never collectively gone through that. Their archetype doesn't do that. Yes, some of them have done it, but that's not the point I'm making. So they're entering an environment created by men's, constant creation of disconnected killing techniques and methodologies. And then they're entering there without an image to follow. Having rejected the male savior, the male church, the male order system, but having no order. And that only leads to one thing. You have a bunch of godless fucking banshees pressing the kill button non-stop and having no awareness of it. At least, see, if men have had to go through the process of visualizing killing someone with their bare hands or being killed, okay, all of us really do have somewhat of a level. Right. So already, if you're flying one of these, you are supposed to use your image of God or your savior to project the full weight of what you are doing by flying one of these into a wedding. Okay. That's implied. It's still difficult and really dissociated. And that's the reason it exists. It's not because necessarily that this is a more superior level of warfare, but it's more guaranteed that the people will get their kill shot. So this is something you don't know about men in war. A lot of them do not do kill shots. They do not shoot to kill. They don't. It's a really, really, really important thing to understand about warfare on the ground, boots on the ground warfare. Men do not kill. They do not instinctively kill. They instinctively do not kill. They have to be trained to kill. They have to be trained to dissociate killing or given technologies that dissociate killing. Women do not even have an association with killing. And this is the problem. It's like women will be utilized to sign off on executions using already dissociated, distributed weapons of war, and they don't even have the core principle of this in them. They haven't grounded this because they have not been raised as men. They've been raised under the protective umbrella of womankind. And womankind under the umbrella of protection from the patriarchal Christian archetype of gentlemanly conduct in Parliament that I'm discussing, which creates the mentality that to ever hit a woman is a crime, should never be done. Well, what happens when those women create words into becoming violence? Okay, traditionally it would be, okay, to yell at your missus for not cooking you eggs, is violence, okay? But to yell at a female politician who is creating barriers and barricades around herself with words preventing words from hitting her while she is collectively designing and perpetuating a reality of global warfare that revolves women pressing a dissociated button of death, either on the macro or on the micro or the macro. You know what I mean? It's like, that isn't what all of this is intended to do. And it's like, what is that? Whose image are you acting under? I will not speak to you. You will not speak to me like that. You will not disrupt my construction of this dissociated fucking global warfare button, female instituted global suicide. You will not. Just funny enough, it's like, doesn't that look like a fried egg? It's a button. Doesn't it also look like a nipple? I don't know how these things happen. I'm discussing a button. Now, the real thing is like, if I've already proven this in my individual case taking place with two Christian background, two Celtic background, two British background migrants within Australia, all held within our system, it's like we're all still on the same ship. You know, if we claim that we haven't, colonisation of Australia is not the same as the Aboriginals have. It's like we are colonising. We're still in the act of colonising Australia. You can't say you're not colonising Australia and then be, you know, subsidising immigrants. It's like, that's what that is. That is what that is. It's under very different circumstances. Now, my claim is like, I don't have a problem necessarily with importing immigrants. Australia is really large and we have a lot of room and we have a lot of capacity to improve a lot of things. I have a problem with mass importing people under a godless system. You know, even worse, under a godless, unidentifiable female archetype system that has nothing to ground on. See, even if you claim you're an atheist in our political system as a man, you're in there and you know the history that it was developed by God-fearing people, by Christians, you know, holding a high archetype of non-violent communication. You know, Parliament. So you could say an atheist, and I have to sit there and be like, well, I respect your decision to be an atheist. Could you discuss this with me? How does this, you know, we're still in gentlemanly conduct. You still have to conform to that as a man. As a woman, all bets are off. You do not. Because the female collective claim is that you have self-liberated yourselves from confinement. Now, the thing is, it's like men self-liberated themselves from confinement as well into that archetype of God or their Saviour Jesus. They liberated themselves from the confinement of chaos, you know, and firmly grounded themselves in the confinement of God's influence, of God's image. So the claim of women, you're only at stage one. It's like you are all collectively claiming to have self-liberated yourselves from confinement, which was actually, you were just being held in the confinement that men had, that was actually containment within God's hands. But because you weren't incorporated into the goings on of that, you felt you needed influence on that. And so you have liberated yourself from out, you have leapt out of God's hands back into chaos. So this is very similar to like the and I'll get this is funny. Like, I don't know if any of you've seen that there for ages. It's this fucking archetype here of and it's funny because my current girlfriend said that this was Freya, right, who was a Norse goddess. Okay. Now on the back it says Archangel Faith. Okay, so she was wrong. It wasn't Freya. It's Archangel Faith, who I've never even heard of. And then on the back it says Lily Moses, and it's got a fleur-de-lis, and then I created another little fleur-de-lis seal there out of some blue tack. But I've described this to her, and I said, listen, this is some type of goddess who's holding a fucking, and sorry about the reflection, she's holding a sword down, which is a mirror between two peacocks, right? And then the sword is stabbing a flower. Okay? Now, the two peacocks must be males because they're feathers. So they're two male birds. And they're being distracted by their own reflection within the sword. Okay? And the sword is stabbing into a flower, into nature. Now, I don't understand how that could possibly mean anything except for that this seems to be some type of goddess that is there to distract men, okay, and destroy nature. I don't see how that is something to behold. And this is the problem. It's like, and look, Jesus has some fucking problems with this as well. But it's like, what is this exactly? You know, do I have to phone this Lily Moses and be like, what are you distributing here? This Archangel Faith. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the fucking, because this is this stuff. Can you please give me a detailed description of Archangel Faith? In spiritual esoteric traditions, particularly in the teachings of the seven archangels with seven rays, Archangel Faith is recognized as the divine feminine counterpart to Archangel Michael. While Michael represents the protective and proactive aspect of blue ray, Faith represents the receptive internal strength required to restrain one's convictions. Associated with the color blue, represents divine will, aligning personal desire with higher purpose. Strength to shield one's spirit from negativity. The divine, even when the path is not visible. In meditative descriptions and traditional iconography, Archangel Faith is often depicted with the following attributes. Is enveloped in shimmering light. The chalice, she is frequently seen holding a crystal cup or chalice symbolizing the vessel of the soul being filled with the divine nectar or the substance of faith. The sword of light. Like Michael, she may carry a sword, but hers is often described as a tool for cutting through illusions and self-doubt rather than physical combat. Her energy is described as grounded, vast, and steady like the deep ocean of the night sky. So that could mean why. That's why the sword is going into the ground. But it's specifically stabbing into a flower. Her primary job is to help individuals overcome the fears of the world. She's called upon for dispelling doubt. She helps quiet mental chatter and tells you that you aren't enough. Manifestation Faith is often seen as literally building a block of creation. She helps people hold the vision steady until it can manifest in the physical world. Protection of the spiritual. While Michael protects the physical body in the outer world, Faith protects the inner world and heart. They are often described as divine complements. Archangel Michael. So that's, that's an archetype that has been played with for, because you'd also argue that she's preventing those two cocks from fighting each other. But it's like, these just aren't, it's gobbledygook. It's like conflicting, and it leads to this thing. It just looks pretty and cool. It's like, make her tail of fucking peacock feathers, despite the fact that peacocks are a male bird, and then have her stabbing a flower. You know what I mean? Like, and this is the problem. And that's just one. That's one fucking example of a female created, unproven, untested archetype that is not conformed to. You know what I mean? I can't imagine. It's like, imagine a bunch of women going together. It's like, we all enter this room in the spirit of Archangel Faith and in her image. What does her image even mean? It means what? What does that mean? Jesus is a bit easy. Self-sacrifice, non-violence, challenging authority, did I say self-sacrifice? All these things, like alliance to God, humility to God's will, protection of all. It's like that's pretty easy. You don't have to be Jesus. You just have to. You have to appear in His image, and then over enough time, men have developed or did develop very strong kind of thing. And then this is the fluctuation between the extremes. It's like, you're not quite doing it right. No, we had a bunch of that. Okay, but we were able to do a whole lot of things with our pretty good grasp on who Jesus was, who God is, and how to act in His image in our Christian faith, from our, British background, from our European background. We had that down. Women have nothing anywhere near it, nowhere near it. And even the thing, it's like you could claim that why has there been allowed to be an abortion thing? Well, in essence, the Virgin Mary, killed her son. So if the ultimate thing is like you to be a virgin, so you to have sex out of wedlock, get pregnant, and then your son to die, that is all contained within an abortion. All of it. And this is the strength. It's like the same. Kurt Cobain was technically imitating Jesus. This is why these things they're at the same time. It's like Kurt Cobain did represent himself as Jesus, in his video clips. A lot of them did. A lot of the people, like Chris Cornell did it. Kurt Cobain did it. Because it's like in turmoil, in chaos, in the destruction of our agreed upon environments to act and present in the image of God or our Savior, then we're all fine. But if that's in degradation, the instinct for people still holding true that Christian doctrine is to self-sacrifice, to ultimate, to say, I am Jesus and I'm going to die. And then they do. See, the world didn't kill them because the world didn't care as much as what we think they do. If you are a Christian at heart, it's like you hold truly that you will be sacrificed for your faith. But the world just doesn't care anymore. The world's not going to do it. So then they end up doing it to themselves. Now, the same way as that is happening in the form of Chris Cornell and Kurt Cobain, it's like that's what women are doing in the form of an abortion. The abortion holds all the same things that the Virgin Mary had. Marriage out of wedlock, or an unwanted baby, or an unplanned baby in this thing, in most cases. And then the sacrifice of that child. They are hacking the Christian world with this concept of abortion. And because then they are self-liberating themselves in their own decree from Christian constraint, they don't understand that they are still constrained within Christianity to accept all of this. Because on the long thing, it's like when that's all spread out and understood properly, and when we're all acting in the image of God and we're all trying to maintain this high Christian level, then all of that works. It understands that all women do have to sacrifice their children to the world. They have to let go of control of it, but it's like they don't have that all in their hands. And this is what's going on all over the place. And the only solution is like we are being attacked on our subconscious Christian alignment in an environment where we are throwing overboard all of our Christian artifacts and constraints. And so it's like we're going to lose the map home. We're going to lose our breadcrumb trail, and then we're just going to be completely unaware of why these things are going on. And that would require rebuilding the whole thing from scratch again. Now, the clear thing is that this isn't happening uniformly. There are other religious faiths that are attacking us on this dimension that are not doing the same thing. You know, we all sat there in horror when we heard about the one-child policy in China, but we are now them. We are now China. And we are worse. We are far worse. We all hear about these things of harems and whatever in Muslim countries. Is like, we are worse. We are worse. And then the problem is, like, if we're being attacked and sabotaged on those limits to begin with, and then it's like once we step over the line into atrocity, then we are then attacked on atrocity. It's the ultimate in warfare. It's like you convince them to liberate themselves by self-destruction, and then you condemn their self-destruction. It's flawless. Like, how do you combat that without holding true and resorting back and restoring the original concept? And it's like, well, we need to do that as men, and then women need to be instructed to build the same. It's like women need a reliable and consistent Christian archetype to emulate. They don't have one. It is not Mary. It is not. You could say it is Jesus, but then we don't really need our women to be acting like Jesus. And it's like, what do we need our women? We need our women to be supporting the men who are doing this. And that's the core problem. It's like women are wanting to do it on their own. And I think the preconception is that no one would exist without women. Okay? And that is the tool that's being used. It's like no one would exist without women, hence we should all listen to women. It's like no one would exist without men. You know what I mean? And it's like, do you want to live in the place? See, and again, women, most of their threats come from men, but they don't actually. Most of their threats come from women. Most of their extreme thoughts of threat come from men, but most of their actually lived threats and attacks come from women. But then the men, the extreme nature of the male attack is always higher, so they hold that in their vision. They don't truly go through all the thing and say, and it's the same with men. It's like, my most extreme things have been from men, but my most consistent and never-ending attacks are from women. So it's all the same. It's like there isn't a archetype that you cannot build any type of political influence if you don't have that down, because you are celebrating chaos and you are disguising it and falsely representing it as progress. It's not progress, it's chaos. It's the very reason for all of these things. The God is our liberation from chaos. And so it's kind of inevitable. It's like you reject God, you introduce chaos, which puts the demand on you to then reintegrate God. But you are claiming that God has brought chaos, which is just self-serving and really short-sighted. It's like when a women go, like any other thing, it's like if you have to present to the court, they're going to read you the list of your infringement. Why didn't you do this? You have, there's supposed to be this responsibility to go along with your own self-interest and to report and to be a like that's all of our laws, but revolve on that. So they're like, your responsibility is to govern your own actions within the law. And it's like, well, no one would have argued that the law of removing God from the equation is going to cause chaos. And it is causing chaos. It's just who is going to adjudicate that chaos. It's the problem. It's like we removed the church from our state, and they were the adjudicators. And then the state is made clearly being exposed for making their own rules. And their own rules seem to only be governing women's liberty to present a godless archetype, a godless, diverse archetype. Chaos. You know, if I had a magic spell that was strong enough to inflict the world's Christians, the world's men, with that same thing, God damn, the world would end the next day. So much of our order and our systems are being held together by the innate kind of instinctual and developed status of male alignment somewhere near. Even because the problem is there's a big difference to men that know they're doing something wrong, that is godless, that is, you know, that is evil, wrong, and are still doing it. It's another reality to end up somewhere where they don't even know. They've got no metric. It's just all out. You know, that's what's described as a psychopath. So a psychopath is someone who acts as if God isn't real. They act on their own rule, and that's what these women are presenting, not in the fucking fringes and in the shadows. They're presenting it loud and proud as their archetype. That's a problem. It's a problem that can't be resolved within this, you know, within this dual gender system, because we cannot. Women are not conforming to the constraints that their ancestors and their forefathers constrained to, and they're benefiting from that, and they're gaining ground by that. Of course, just as men would have. You know, our whole history is filled with men who have done, like Hitler. Hitler went against the conformity of, you know, the constraints, and he did a whole bunch of damage once we let him out. It's like, what happens if we have an entire gender, 50% of the population, that doesn't even agree that there should be a uniform archetype to present if you're going to have political influence? Well, you get this. So, yeah, that'll do. Thank you for listening.